Welcome to another Round the Rotary with me, JP Warren, your host, and with us today we have Doug Woodcock, drilling engineer over at Callon Petroleum. How are you doing today, Doug?
Doing good.
All right, good. Well, I guess let's just get this kicked off. You've been working from the house, I assume?
Yeah, we've been working from the house since March, early March, and we tried to get back to a A-B rotation, and then that just got shut down again.
With all the spikes going on with COVID and
Back to the house.
back to the house. Do you like working at the house?
Yes and no. I mean,
It's got its trade-offs.
yeah, there's a lot of honeydews, but it is nice to kind of work from your pajamas.
People are finding it's definitely an interesting balance that people are trying to find. You work from home and you either got to isolate yourself or you work, you do honeydews, you work, you do honeydews back and forth. But I think I think that's a challenge that people are having right now is trying to find that work home life balance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we just got the one office, and my wife's an attorney, and so we're kind of battling for the office. Like 1 week I'll
Oh,
she
okay.
gets it, and
So
then you get banished to the couch, and your back hurts. Yeah,
well, let's
the
get this.
challenges, but it's been fine.
Well, I think everyone's facing challenges in their own way right now, whether it's figuring out what to do at the house or trying to stay motivated, trying to stay optimistic in this environment. But let's get this kicked off. Why don't you give us a little background about yourself so people understand kind of your personal, professional career path, and we'll go from there.
Cool. Yeah. So I grew up in the Woodlands area. I went to Vanderbilt for college. Studied chemical engineering. Didn't really know I was going to get into the oil field, except for I was graduating in 2013. So all the internships at the time were everybody was looking to hire drilling engineers.
Right.
Basically, they thought they were going to be running 100 rigs apiece.
The good old days.
So I applied and got it, and then joined Shell in summer of 2013, working the Eagleford. They were in the middle of basically marketing that to Sanchez, and so that folded up.
Which is, as of today, known as Mesquite Energy.
Okay,
Press release out today. Mesquite Energy.
rebranded. So I worked at Eagleford a little bit for them, and then kind of rolled into their Delaware Basin properties that they had acquired from Chesapeake, and I worked that for a while, and then moved into. Actually, we moved to Midland and took a job with Anadarko, and worked their Delaware properties, which was basically the same as Shell as a JV.
Right.
And then I went over to Carrizo Oil and Gas from 2018 to just December of last year, and then they were acquired by Callon. So I spent all that time, about 6 years, working Delaware with a little bit of Eagleford before that, and now it looks like we'll probably be focusing more Midland Basin.
Are you first generation oil field?
Yeah.
Yeah, myself as
Yeah.
well. So you were living in Midland, and you moved back to Houston when?
Yeah, we just moved back in February.
Okay. All right. So not that long. So
Yeah.
So let's kind of get into this a little bit. So talking about, I guess, everything going on in the industry right now, and there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of, I mean, it doesn't matter what news article you read right now. Either it's optimistic, pessimistic. Oil can stay below $30 till 2022. It can shoot up to 170. But I guess kind of I know. I mean, it doesn't matter what you read. It's always going to be one thing or another. But what is your outlook on, I guess, the near future of the oil and gas industry? You know, what do you think that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer to this is basically, is this a challenge or an opportunity? And the answer is yes, both. Because I mean, if we really look at it, I mean, since the initial downturn in fall of 2014, which has basically been my whole career, we have basically been kicking the can. I mean, we've had there was a flood of money that came in 2015 that kind of supported getting back to some normal levels of drilling. And then it just, the industry was figuring out the parent-child stuff, and nothing really panned out good enough. The price never really recovered good enough to really overcome all the initial investment when the market wanted growth at all costs. Wall Street was pushing that.
Right.
And then we changed to the cash flow, and rightfully so. And so some people are hung out to dry. And so over the last 6 years has been sort of a trying time where we were kind of acting like things were rosy, and they really weren't that rosy.
Right.
But I think this time is kind of the necessary evil of like the capitalist cycle. I mean, you have winners and losers, and this is one of the times where they decide whether you're a winner or a loser, or you decide, and it's going to be a little painful, and I think it has to be. You're going to have a lot of probably consolidation. I mean, the balance sheets need to look better to reattract investment.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think you're going to see a little bit of pain, but kind of out of the ashes. When things do get consolidated, you do get some guys' balance sheets righted a little bit, whether that's through M&A or restructuring or whatever. I think that we can make some money in this industry and return cash like people want. We're in a little bit of a prove it phase,
right?
Kind of a regeneration, I think you'd say. And I don't expect us to get bailed out by any kind of high oil price, especially with the dragging on.
I don't think we need to get bailed out by high oil prices. I think this is something that it's you're right. It's been 5 or 6 years coming, and you expected to see certain behaviors that are occurring right now to companies. We should have seen that in 2015, 2016.
Yeah, there's maybe a little bit too much confidence back then.
Right. So we're talking about, companies having opportunities, or companies having challenges. So on the personal level, what are some opportunities that you see?
Yeah, so on the personal level, obviously people are being affected through layoffs, through pay cuts, all that kind of stuff is happening. And so I'd say if you're on that side, you got to be comfortable with betting on yourself. And if I always say if I'm gonna bet on one thing, it's myself. And I think if you get caught up in that side, that's kind of got to be your attitude. Just kind of see what you can do.
And that's kind of what we discussed previously with a couple other guests. It's like, in this environment, you can sit there and do what you've done for the past 5 years, 5 or 6 years, or 10 years, however long you've been in the industry, or as you said, bet on yourself. And I think this day and age, it kind of calls for people to be more innovative, to try to wear different hats, try to find out where you can add value in ways that no one was doing before.
Yeah, I agree. And if you're still in your organization, you gotta dig. Sometimes we always joke when we're drilling, kind of hair on fire. You don't have a chance to really look at anything. Well, now you have a lot of chances to look at things. So you should take advantage of that. So dig into the data that you always said you don't have time to dig into. Maybe work on some processes that make you more efficient when things get better. Maybe helps other groups. Maybe you can expose yourself to the other groups within your company.
Right.
Get more acquainted with the reservoir side, or maybe the planning group, or that kind of stuff.
I think that right there is pretty crucial. Right there, it's don't get locked in, or try not to get locked into your discipline.
Right.
I think it probably makes more sense to probably branch out and try to find out what other areas or disciplines you can add value.
Right.
If that makes sense.
If you just get stuck doing, if you're like, well, I'm a drilling engineer, so You know,
That's all I know.
I'm only going to look at mud. Well, you know, that's not going to be that valuable right now.
No.
You can look at mud a little bit, but
there's other stuff to look at. We talked with Jason Churchill, and he was mentioning technology is one thing that he's focusing on during this time of reduced activity.
Yeah, and operational technology, or like within the company.
Operational technologies.
Yeah, I mean that's a perfect time to look at it, and you can ask him, you know, send me all your run data, and you can actually have a chance to look at actually all the run data. You know, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think when things are blowing and going, you don't really have a chance to do all the due diligence that you want to do.
Right.
And this is a time that you have some opportunity to do that. And hopefully that makes life easier when you're running, you know, 2-3 rigs, you know, 2 years. 3 years.
Yeah, I mean that's everything I've heard. It's gonna be a slow. It's gonna be a slow, gradual increase in activity. It's not gonna be hit the gas pedal, let's blow and go. It's gonna be kind of a slow and steady, organic growth, profit mindset over just kind of drilling wells
and that's why I think you can't mess up. Basically, I mean, there's no room for error when you get back to drilling. Whether that's one rig. I mean, it's going to be slow, like you said.
Right.
And so you got to take this time to set yourself up to be near perfect when you get back to going. And that's kind of what everybody's going to expect.
How do you think that's going to be? You think that's going to be more of a challenge than people are talking about?
Always is more of a challenge. You just have different people in and out of the rigs, different rigs, you know. So yeah, I mean, there's going to be the challenges getting going again. I think retraining people, getting the teams back together. I mean,
if they're around,
some people may leave.
Yeah.
So you got to train new people. I mean, all that stuff is stuff we're going to have to manage when things do get going again. But I think you take this time to kind of reset. You know, there might be some stuff that you didn't have time to get to, and now you can get to it. And kind of close a few books, and maybe open a couple new projects. You know, but,
get after it.
But yeah.
So what? So talking about you personally and your career path, you know, what has been some of the best resources or experiences that have helped you personally along the way?
For me, kind of on the technical side, you know, I had a lot of contacts. There were a lot of old guys at Shell that had been drilling forever. Were really good mentors initially on the technical side. Kind of teach you some lessons that they learned the hard way, and you know, if you take good notes and keep all your training materials and stuff, you know, that I do still reference a lot of that stuff, you know, time to time.
A lot of the stuff you got from your mentors.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just kind of ways that they did it. You know, when you find yourself kind of in a pickle, you know, it helps to kind of go back and look at that stuff, or call them. You know.
So old mentors, people is one resource or area of experience. Is there anything else that have kind of helped prop you up to be where you're at today?
Really, it's just the teams that you work with. You know, everybody has good strengths. So, I mean, that's the one thing I think that I've learned is you got to stay humble. You got to meet people and talk to people like they've got something to add
okay.
to the team. I mean, I've been guilty of it in the past too, but if you just assume that you know the right answer all the time, then either people stop talking to you altogether,
generally or know it all like this guy,
or they're not gonna tell you what they think, or you're not gonna get the value from them. And so I think that's just kind of being a good teammate. You start to get a bunch of good connections, guys that you can call if something's happening, or you know, even with this COVID stuff,
mm-hmm.
like, hey, what are you guys doing at your location? How are you guys making sure that um, you're not letting guys in that are potentially have it or can expose other people, or and that could be a mess. And so, kind of working through best practices on that side, that took several phone calls with several people I knew.
So it's the teams that you build, but it's also, I guess, the network that you have.
Yeah. I mean, you got and my background, I've been in a few different companies with many different people and teams,
right.
And so for me, that's been something that's helped is maintaining those networks and staying in touch with guys. And when they call you, give them a good effort. Don't just say, well, I tried this once. And
that's not my problem. That's not my scope of focus right now. I'm worried about other shit I'm doing right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's the older generational knowledge that I guess we've all had in our careers. But let's talk about, I guess, the younger generation. What can we learn from them that are coming in the industry or that have been in the industry for a short amount of time?
So the biggest thing I'd say about those guys is, and there's not that many of them anymore. I kind of maybe fall into that, but I don't, because these guys can code like crazy. So all these data analytics type projects,
right,
and linking databases together and automating all this data, so that you can get the right answer. You can basically look at a ton of data in 5 minutes and have a really good answer. And if your boss is like, well, why do you want to do that? Well, look,
you have it there,
20-page
black and white
automated report, and this is why. I don't know how to code like they do, and so I think that's something that we need to acknowledge and learn, or else we're going to be the guys that don't know how to use Excel.
Yeah. And we know people like that out there,
and that's going to be a problem.
But that kind of speaks to your last point too. I mean, if we are the older generation in the oil field and all that, it's you're relying on those younger people to do the codes and to coding and Excel and all that stuff. But that's also a responsibility on you to teach them your knowledge.
Yeah,
and what you've learned.
And that's also really that's kind of where we've gotten some really good values. They can build the tools. You can help them build what you want to see, and then you can kind of show them how to use it day to day, and in practice or in a well or whatever. And so I've been trading some of that for some coding knowledge.
Right.
Hey, I'll teach you. How to do this if you just kind of show me how to link up these databases.
Well, talking about that, so do you think it's better to be to have more skills and knowledge background or experience, or do you feel it's better to be coachable?
Yeah, I think the better trait is coachable. Not to say that having a bunch of skills and being a quote unquote expert is not important. I mean, I think that's still very important, but I think being coachable kind of trumps that, because and we all know here in this industry you can't do anything by yourself. You need a good team of people, and if you just have a bunch of people that are experts but can't talk or aren't willing to adapt or do what the team needs, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. If you're not coachable, you're not going to be able to adapt to the situation and do what you need to do to provide value to the organization today, because like the environment just changed, and being an expert drilling engineer with no rigs isn't that important anymore.
An advanced, advanced drilling engineer?
Yeah, if you're an advanced drilling
engineer. Right, like some people we know.
So anyway, yeah, you gotta be coachable, and I think you just look at sports too. There's very few people that are successful at the high levels just because they have the best skills.
The talent, right?
and some of the most successful didn't have the best skills or most known. Like I think of like Steve Kerr, like he won several championships. That's just the spot up 3 dude for Michael Jordan.
Yes,
and he,
so
had a great career.
Well, we've been talking about teams a lot right now, and so I feel that and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but to you, teams are kind of essentially the group of people in your boat that's going to carry you through whatever challenge or storm that you're faced with right now. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think
a good team.
Got to leverage a good team.
If you're putting a team together, let's say you're general manager, company X, what are you looking for when it comes to a good team?
I mean, I think some of the stuff we've talked about already. I'm looking for some humility, and I'm looking for some general traits that they're committed to their work. That they like to perfect their craft and that they're interested in it. I feel like those are kind of easy things to pick up on, and they're not going to show up on the resume.
Right.
Probably be a little more clear in the interview. I'm looking to see if they're going to be coachable. Can I work with them very well? I mean, I think there's going to be a threshold of experience that's important. I mean, for the position that you're looking to fill out. But I think it's almost they come in thresholds, right? Like if it's like in school, if you make an 89 or an 85, like it's still a B.
Right.
Or like in FIFA, like the 96 guy or the 94 guy. Maybe you like the 94 guy better. It's just more fun to play with.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, so I kind of see like capacity as sort of like thresholds. Do they meet the criteria? Like, do they know what they're doing?
Right.
And then a lot of the rest of the stuff is just going to be behavioral. Are they team members? Do they want to be on the team? Do they like drilling? Do they like oil and gas? Or are they just sort of doing this?
They're just there for the glamour of what they think oil and gas industry is all about. So that's I had a point. So actually, the point was this. One thing that I've noticed is something that actually can't be taught or coached is the drive to want to put forth a good product and the work ethic. Mm-hmm. I feel that's not talked about enough because a lot of people. I'm not saying this younger generation doesn't have it, but it's not just the younger. It's every generation. I mean, I think you have to have the drive of people that don't just hand in. Okay, well, this is what you asked me to do. That's it. You want people to kind of go above and beyond. That kind of correlates back to what we were saying before: is how much value in which areas can you add?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's exactly right. I mean, if I'm a manager and I'm asking you to do X, Y, and Z, if all you do is X, Y, and Z, people or the manager is going to be like, well, I don't have enough time to tell you everything that you need to do. They're looking for somebody that'll do X, Y, Z, and then also see that the organization needs this, and then just go do it. Might want to let them know you are doing it.
Just give a little plug.
Yeah.
I remember when I was
working on this.
I remember I was working at Noble Drilling. Whenever you stayed past, I guess when everyone left, like if you're at the office around 7 or 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night, I used to shoot an email out to my whole team, being like, "Hey guys, how do you get this? How do you get the printer working on the 7th floor? Oh, never mind, figure it out. Thanks." Let them know what you're doing. Like it's kind of like a little humble brag. It's like, "Hey, how do you the AC shut off? At the office after 8 o'clock. No worries, guys. I'll just figure it out."
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, I was there. I'll just figure it out later. So
I had this old drilling advisor once who he'd always get emails like late at night.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy's not waking up and sending emails. So I finally asked him, I'm like, you didn't send emails at 11 last night? Because he's not watching rigs or anything. So he's like, yeah, I just like sort of schedule my emails to go out,
So he's just actually working 24/7.
No, he's like, he'll write an email at like 3 p.m. and in Outlook you can say like, send this email at like.
But it gives the illusion that he's always like, hey, this guy never sleeps. This guy's burning midnight oil.
Or send it out at like 5:30 p.m. and I'll peace at like 3.
Yeah. So people are stuck in traffic.
Man,
It's like still at the office, man.
Okay, interesting trick.
That's kind of good. Let's kind of get more a little personal right now and kind of step away from the team building, and I want to hear about kind of some experience in your life. So in your career, since 2013, 2014. And this, I think this will be beneficial for people out there because a lot of people come on and they want to brag about what they've done and what they want to beat their chest and say these are my accomplishments. But I want to talk about kind of some failures or a failure that you've had in your career and what was done and kind of what you learned from that failure.
Okay, yeah. So my biggest failure, maybe not down to one specific moment, but when I first entered the industry, coming from school and all that, I was more focused on trying to get the right answer. And even sometimes when you do have the right answer and you know it and other people know it, I could never convey that it was the right answer to the team. And in the drilling world, you got the other drilling engineers on the team, the boss, the field guys, the superintendents,
and everyone knows everyone has the right way to
the vendors, and you got to get everybody in there, everybody to think it's a good idea, and then everybody needs to do it. And if you don't get all those pieces together, it doesn't work.
Right.
It's like you put out this beautiful piece of paper that's like, this is the right way to do it. And the rig is like, yeah, we don't want to do it that way. And so they'll say they tried it and it didn't work.
Okay.
And you're like,
it should work.
It should have, but nobody wanted to do it. And probably because they might have done something like that and it worked.
Or maybe that's just against the way that they've been doing it. And a lot of people hate change.
Managing change. And so going in to being a quote engineer, out of school, I didn't necessarily give as much time or importance to all of the soft skills required to actually generate value for an organization.
Right.
So and there's several examples of that, but over time, I just finally had a moment where I was like, all right, Doug, like this is just how it is. Like I know you don't think it has to be like this or it shouldn't be like this, but it is. So work around the fact that is how things get done, and just do the good technical work, but talk to people, get the buy-in. If they don't want to do it, figure out why.
Yeah.
Spend all that time up front to make sure that the work that you're doing is valuable. Because what got me, and kind of why I bounced around a little bit, was I would grow frustrated with the fact that people aren't doing the right thing.
According to Doug.
According to me.
Okay.
Of course, I have the right answer.
Right. Yeah. I tell my wife I'm right all the time. That goes over really good.
Yeah, exactly. And so you kind of grow frustrated. You're like, oh, this is bullshit.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. And then you go to the next place or the next team, even in the same company.
Bunch of idiots there.
And you're like, okay, fine. Finally, I'm in a new team. And then like 3 months, you're happy for 3 months, and then you're like, man, these guys they're doing this. What are we doing?
Idiots.
And then, yeah. So basically, you just get frustrated you're happy for 3 months, and you're just pissed off. And then, ultimately, you just go through these cycles, and you're never happy. Well, basically, what I learned kind of the hard way was you got to just dig a trench and get in there with people. And, sometimes you're not doing things the way you would want to do them. But that's the way they've done them, and they've had success. And so who are you to necessarily change that? And so part of that too is learning how to figure out what's the priority too. I mean, if it's a really big problem and it's really causing a huge a deficiency in the performance or something, then that's something you might want to actually
stake your client,
focus on and bring it up and really work. But if it's something really small and it's not even immediately obvious to everybody that it's making a difference, then,
but that's interesting. You said soft skills, because I remember the guy that brought me in the oil field, Carrick Payton. He always prided himself. You know, he knew what he was doing. One of the smartest guys I've ever met. But he's like, I always want the soft skills is pretty much the grease on the track. You know, like you need to have the soft skills, Carrick. He's like, well, coach me how to do the soft skills. Like it's you're right. I mean, it's finding out what motivates people. Why doesn't somebody want to go down this road or look at this problem this way with these new lenses? It's figuring out kind of what's driving people. You know, that way you kind of either communicate why this is important to try something new out, or whatever that is. I don't care if it's, you know, getting an invoice signed, or I don't care if it's, you know, a new way to drill a well. It's getting the soft skills, getting the relationships going, so you can understand why is there pushback coming back, or why, or what will make them buy in. Yeah.
And I've even early on, like at Shell, and you know, they're very big on the soft skills side. But my manager was like, he's from Venezuela. You have got to focus on the soft skills. It's very important. And I'm like, whatever.
I don't have time for that. I'm an engineer.
Yeah, whatever. But you know, like a few years later, I was like, he was right. I'm just gonna dig a trench.
You know, get out of my office. Let me be happy for 3 months, then pissed off. Okay, bud? All right, close the door.
I want to go through the cycle.
I want to go through the cycle. I want to get depressed in my job. Okay?
Yeah.
Let me do my thing. So,
once I kind of learned that, it's easier to be sustainably reliable for the organization.
Okay.
Without, you know, because if you're always just getting flustered, then you just at some point you just hang it up.
Yeah.
You know, and you're not very useful anymore. So, no, I think that's been a really good lesson. I've been much happier being a drilling engineer once I finally bought in. But I had to do it I had to do it my way.
Well, I can see that. I can see people kind of get disgruntled, you know, and then next thing you know, every little pushback, you're like, oh shit, okay, you're not gonna listen to me. Okay, fine.
Yeah,
okay, and you're right. You hang it up.
Yeah.
You hang it up. So before we kind of get into kind of wrap it up with, I want to hear a funny story from you, from your experience in the oil field or working in the field. But how do you? And I know this is kind of off the cuff right now. We didn't write this down, or we didn't discuss this previously. But how do you want the oil field to kind of to mature or get through this? I mean, how do you view it? I mean, what do you want it to look like?
Ooh. From a general standpoint, I think that we need to have some pain.
Okay.
That's probably an unpopular opinion, but basically, in order to have the type of, I mean, if you look at you just look at the debt ratios and whatever one you want to look at of our E&P industry, it's somewhat laughable when you look at like other industries.
Right.
Like if I'm a general investor, I'm looking at everybody as extremely high risk on the E&P side, and I think you've seen that with the equity markets.
Yeah, they don't know how to spend their money; they just burn it.
They're just burning capital, and everybody's highly levered, and so there's big problems there. The only way that gets fixed probably is through some pain, and so if we want a long-term business, if we want a sustainable recovery out of this, that needs to happen. If we get another flood of investor capital, people are drilling wells that don't make money. People are drilling a bunch of parents and flipping properties, and you know that's how people get into this type of debt problem, because all those were mistakes that we learned over the last decade.
And the market's not anywhere where you can flip it anymore. You can't, punch 2 holes, 3 holes in the ground and flip it anymore for 3-4 times what you paid for it.
There's no buyers.
Yeah.
Because they all, and so we've learned a lot of lessons over the last decade. And unfortunately, that's caused some accumulation of debt.
Right.
So we need to have some pain. There has to be the capitalist cycle of the unpopular side, which is the losers,
right,
and the winners. The good news is that the assets are there. The rock doesn't have debt. It's
right.
only the company that's drilling that rock.
Right.
And so there's still very good assets here, and we just need to figure out the balance sheet side of it. So that's how I would like to see it. There's going to have to be some pain, but I think if you're committed to sticking around long term, that's going to generate a lot of opportunity.
Right.
Because now you have really good assets that aren't burdened with failures of other basins. I mean, a company maybe had several failed ventures in Marcellus, Niobrara, whatever.
Right.
And then they might have had a really good run in West Texas or in the Eagle Ford in particular. But those weren't good enough to make up for the fact that you blew a bunch of money in other basins. And so the assets are good. It's just the some of the debt structures. And so anyway, that's kind of how I'd like it to pan out. If we get through this thing and nobody is a winner, or if nobody loses, and then basically everybody's sort of a winner, then we just start doing the same thing.
We'll be here talking about the same thing in 3 years instead of 5.
It has to happen. So,
I know.
So that's how I hope to see it. But I know that's fairly unpopular.
Well, thank you for the unpopular, depressed, disgruntled viewpoint. Why don't you cheer us up a little bit? You got any a memorable story from the rig or from working in the field, or maybe in the office, something in the oil field to kind of that's a funny story that sticks out?
Yeah, I've got 2 pretty funny stories. One of them was these were both when I was at initially at Shell.
All right.
And I think that's kind of when you have your funniest moments, because you have no idea what's going on. You show up on this rig, you don't even know what the stuff's called. You don't know who's doing what. You don't even know how the pipe could bend. Like, how do you make a horizontal well? Steel bends? Yeah. So you show up, and so I showed up to the rig, and this was in the Eagle Ford, and I was with this other engineer who had been there like maybe 2 years. He was young, but not brand new.
Right.
But he had been there long enough where the guys basically had figured out, like, we don't like this guy.
Okay.
Like, we hate this engineer.
Okay.
So I didn't know that either. But so we're up on the rig floor. We were just drilling ahead, whatever. And we're up there, and these guys on this rig, they had this little, like, on the back of the floor behind the drawworks, they had like this little, like, I don't know if they made it or not, but they sort of like created some plumbing back there.
Okay.
So like if you had to take a leak, you didn't have to walk all the way down.
Okay. All right.
And it basically was just this like makeshift pisser.
Yeah.
And there's a little PVC line that ran out and off the back.
Yeah.
And it kind of dropped down.
Oh God. Go on.
And so they're like, taking leaks off the back, and I didn't know I didn't even know. But one of these, I think the company man called up and he said, like, hey, they had some code word. And so they sent the other engineer down to take a look. Like, they were like, hey, why don't you go take a look? We're having this issue. Like, and it was like just down by the sub, and there's like really nothing to look at.
Right.
But he walked down there and was like looking at something, and this then just dripping piss all over his head.
Did he find out?
No.
Well, if you're listening, whoever you are, here's Here's confession on Round the Rotary.
So that's how I realized. I was like, oh, wow. I was probably like a couple weeks in.
That's why you got to learn soft skills.
My first visit, and I was like, oh, I really don't want to piss these guys off. Like they'll piss on me.
Well, that's also why you need soft skills so you don't get pissed on.
That's
right?
True.
Right? Okay.
That could happen. Yeah, exactly. So that was something that was funny to watch. But my own personal sort of funny story was, and that was an established rig. The company men had been there for a long time, and they were friendly, pretty much, and so it wasn't like that big a deal. But then I got moved to the West Texas group, and there was this guy there who he had lost an eye, like part of his face had been caught in like a boating accident in the rotor of one of the motors, and it was rough, and he was missing an eye, but he didn't wear a patch, so it was just like a really hard looking dude. And so I walk up.
Oh, so was it just like a hole there? I mean, what?
Yeah, it's just sort of like a droopy eyelid, like missing an eyeball there.
So his face went round the rotary.
Round the rotary.
That's a good plug, but I feel horrible saying that.
Yeah.
Go on.
So I'm meeting him for the first time. I learned all that after. I just like see him, and I'm like, holy God, this guy is really a hard guy. And so we're talking, and he's not really that impressed to meet me.
Right.
He's one of those guys like, is this new engineer?
You got to impress him you got to make a good impression on him to him bring you in the circle.
Yeah. You had to do the hard work. Anyway. So this was the initial meeting. So he was basically showing me that like he doesn't need me, which is typical.
Right.
But this was like my first encounter of it, and he's got this no eye, and we're talking, and he's like, "So where'd you go to school?" And I was just when I got out of, when people ask you like, "Where'd you go to school?" You're like, "I went here. Where'd you go?"
Yeah. Okay.
So I was in that habit because I had just gotten out of school, and I told him, and then I was like, "Well, where'd you go to school?" And I'm like, "Oh shit! Like this is awkward," because like he clearly didn't go to school, and he just looked at me, and he turned his back on me, and he pointed at the rig. And he goes, "School? This was my school." And I was just like, oh, just like melting in my spot.
I remember one time. There was an AD when I was working offshore, and this guy I guess had it for me. I was in this like fast track program, and like I think we were changing out the brakes and the drawworks, and I was kind of doing the same thing. And I don't know if you ever learned this, but righty tighty, lefty loosey. Okay,
right.
So I don't know if anyone's ever learned that before. But that's a little trick, a little new trick that I learned, but
I'll keep it in mind.
Yeah, I got this wrench, and I was kind of like trying to loosen this bolt. I guess I was going the wrong way, or like, for a split second, not that long. And like this guy, I guess, had it out for me. Oh, they didn't teach you that in college, did they? And I looked up, I was like, no, they actually didn't. They didn't teach me this at all in college. I learned marketing and economics, and no, they didn't teach me this shit. So let me just get back to trying to figure this out. Oh, they didn't teach you that in college, did they? No, they really didn't. So sorry. So yeah. Well, let's all right. So let's kind of wrap this up. We're coming on about 45 minutes of content. So what message would you give out there to people that are listening right now? What words of wisdom?
Just stay the course. I mean, don't. I mean, you can do one of two things. I mean, like we talked about earlier, you can go look for stuff to do, add value where you can. Maybe you go back to school if it's been something. I mean, it's going to be relatively slow time. You might have time to do that, and maybe that opens some doors. Just stay busy and do things you think are valuable. Don't get caught up in watching the oil price.
The
oil price .net or whatever.
Yeah.
You're just gonna go crazy and it's a waste of time. So stay relevant. I don't know. That's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to get better every day.
Try to learn new things, such as homemade pasta.
Yeah, we made some ravioli.
What was in that ravioli?
Pizza. Just ricotta, parmesan, and spinach.
Mwah. Delicious. So, well, anyone, I want to thank Doug thanks for coming by, man. I appreciate you stopping by and visiting with us. And again, this is Round the Rotary with me, JP Warren, and it's brought to you by Callon Petroleum Consultants, project engineering, well site supervision. If you have any questions or need to get in touch with us, you can shoot us an email at roundtherotary@cap-petro.com. Again, that's roundtherotary@cap-petro.com. Thanks, Doug. You got anything else for us?
Nope. Thanks, JP.
All right. Thanks for coming in.